This is the story of the prisoner's paper bird. It all started when Omar was just a young boy, full of dreams and aspirations. He lived in a small village nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling sea. The salty breeze carried tales of adventure, and his heart yearned to explore the world beyond the horizon. With a quill in hand and ink-stained fingers, he poured his soul onto parchment, weaving words that danced like fireflies in the twilight. Each stroke of his quill was a prayer, a silent plea for freedom and justice. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Omar's stories took flight. His words painted vivid pictures in the minds of his listeners, transporting them to faraway lands and stirring their souls with tales of courage and hope. Among his most cherished creations were his animal fables, stories that spoke of talking animals with human traits, each one a clever commentary on society's ills. These stories were more than just entertainment. They were a form of protest, a way to criticize the powerful without exposing himself directly. He wove his political commentary into the fabric of these tales, leaving his audience both entertained and enlightened. But as time went on, the authorities grew wary of Omar's influence. His words had become a double-edged sword, admired by many, but feared by those in power. To silence the poet, they stripped him of his freedom, locking him away in a cold, dark cell. The iron bars of his prison stole away the sunlight, replacing it with stale, flickering lamplight that cast grotesque shadows on the damp stone walls. Day after day, he watched the world go by from his tiny window, a silent observer of the changing seasons and the relentless march of time. In the depths of his despair, Omar found solace only in the written word. With nothing else to fill the endless hours, he began to write, pouring his grief, anger, and longing for freedom onto the pages of his journal. But even his words eventually failed to sustain him. He looked around his cell for something, anything, to keep his mind from the suffocating walls. And that's when he saw it, a discarded scrap of newspaper lying in a corner like a forgotten memory. It wasn't much, but in Omar's patient hands it transformed. He unfolded the brittle paper, smoothing out the creases with gentle fingers. Then, with a precision born of boredom and a touch of desperation, he began to cut and fold. At first, it was just a distraction, a way to pass the monotonous hours. But soon, it became something more. With each fold, the paper took on a new life. He made boats that sailed on imaginary seas, animals that pranced in silent zoos, and most hauntingly, birds that soared on paper wings. One day, he made a bird unlike any he had crafted before. It was smaller, more delicate, and as he held it in his hand, he felt a surge of emotion. He didn't just make a bird. He created a symbol, a tangible representation of his yearning for freedom. He gave it a name, the free bird, and every day he would hold it up to the barred window, pretending it was soaring above the prison walls. The other prisoners, curious about the commotion, began to gather around Omar's cell, their faces pale and drawn from years of confinement. They watched as Omar, with a faraway look in his eyes, whispered verses about the bird. His words painted pictures of the free bird flying over mountains and rivers, carrying messages of hope and rebellion. Word of Omar's paper bird reached the ears of the guards, men whose job it was to snuff out any spark of hope. They saw the bird as a symbol of defiance, and Omar's verses as a threat to the order. One day, a burly guard, his face as impassive as stone, approached Omar's cell. He peered through the bars at the paper bird in Omar's hand, his eyes narrowing. Without a word, he reached in and snatched it away, crumpling it into a tight ball and tossing it into the corner. The other prisoners gasped, fearing the worst. But Omar, though his voice hoarse with disuse, began to recite another verse, this time about a bird that may be caged, but whose spirit soars freely. The guard, taken aback by the quiet defiance in Omar's voice, hesitated. He looked at the crumpled bird in his hand, then back at Omar's resolute face. He couldn't understand the words, but he saw the unwavering spirit in the poet's eyes. Something inside him, perhaps a long-forgotten ember of humanity, stirred. With trembling hands, Omar unfolded the paper, smoothing out the creases. The bird was a little less perfect now, but it still held its shape. And as Omar gazed at it, he saw not just a piece of paper, but a testament to the indomitable human spirit. From that day on, the guards kept a watchful eye on Omar, aware that in his hands even a scrap of paper could become a symbol of resistance. They searched his cell thoroughly, confiscating any paper they could find, believing they were stamping out the source of the unrest. But what they didn't understand was that the seeds of hope had already been sown. Every day, the prisoners would gather around Omar's cell, listening intently as he recited his verses about the free bird. And each time he finished, a wave of murmurs would ripple through the crowd. They discussed the poems, sharing their own stories and dreams, their voices growing stronger with each whispered word. Soon, the paper birds began appearing all over the prison, hidden in the folds of blankets tucked under floorboards, even fashioned into tiny boats floating in puddles left by leaky pipes. But his spirit remained unbroken. He continued to write, to paint pictures with his words, and to make his paper birds, each one a silent prayer for freedom. The prison walls may have confined his body, but his imagination knew no bounds. Finally, one day, the heavy iron gates of the prison swung open, and Omar stepped out into the blinding light. The world had changed in the years he'd been away, but something remained constant: the memory of the free bird. As he walked through the village, he saw children with paper birds on strings, their laughter echoing in the streets. He saw old men with birds carved on walking sticks and women with birds woven into their baskets. Everywhere he went, he saw the free bird, not as a symbol of rebellion, but as a reminder of hope. In the end, it wasn't just Omar who had been set free. His quiet act of defiance had flown beyond the prison walls, inspiring an entire people. And so the story of the prisoner's paper bird became a legend, passed down through generations, reminding them that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can soar. So friends, the next time you see a paper bird, remember the story of Omar and the prisoner's paper bird. And remember that even a small act of kindness or hope can have an everlasting impact on the world. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more such videos. Until next time, take care.